Parental empathy dysregulation causes greater emotional dysregulation as well as anxiety in kids. I want to explain to you what this means, but before that, I want to preface this by saying that you are probably not going to see any other videos like this, and there's a reason why. People do not want to address this topic because they are fearful of coming across like they are parent blaming. And I want to be very clear here. I am not blaming parents for anything. I am not judging parents. I believe that all parents are doing the best that they can at any given moment with the information and resources they have available to them. And when I talk about resources, I'm not just talking about information, I'm also talking about their own mental health and the support that they have in their life. To get started, I want to explain that essentially my entire career, over 20 years, has been working with kids or students in schools who are diagnosed with ADHD, as well as higher verbal autism, what we used to call Asperger's. I worked with kids with these profiles both in my private practice and the schools I worked at, as I am a former school social worker and school clinician. The first time I realized that excessive empathy can cause emotional dysregulation and can actually be really disabling for kids was at a school I was working at that was primarily students with what we then called Asperger's, as well as kids with ADHD who were there because of behavior challenges. The school was kind of split into two different groups. And one of the things that I started to notice was there were some parents who were so excessively empathetic with their child that they could not put any kind of boundaries or parameters in place or had any expectations of their child. And what I found was that while many of these parents were being excessively empathetic towards their child out of love, sometimes they were doing it out of fear for their child, and sometimes they were doing it because they just didn't know what else to do. What happened was many of these students were the most emotionally dysregulated students there were. And the reason for that was there was never any kind of parameters in place around what is considered acceptable behavior and acceptable treatment of others. So they basically treated their parents however they wanted, and that was tolerated. And in many cases, that included child-to-parent violence, where the child was aggressive towards their parents or towards family members. I've been in this field long enough now that I've seen the trajectory of some of my former students who are now adults, as well as their classmates. And one of the things I can tell you is for parents who had this empathy dysregulation where they were excessively empathetic towards their child, those were often the young adults who are what we call failure to launch. I don't like that term because I don't think anybody's a failure. The term that I prefer to failure to launch is highly dependent young adults, meaning they are highly dependent on their parents and have not achieved the level of independence that they could have achieved. The other term for this that I also prefer is non-emerging adulthood. So that means when a young adult is not meeting developmental milestones of young adulthood, and this has nothing to do with the fact that they have a diagnosis, we're looking at this in relation to peers who are functioning at the same level cognitively, as well as in terms of their executive functioning and everything else. Through my private practice, I have worked with some young adults who meet the criteria for non-emerging adulthood. And what I can tell you is for many of these young adults, some of them are gifted, many of them went to prestigious colleges and were very good students. However, they lack the resiliency, the independent problem-solving skills, and the emotional regulation skills to be able to function outside of their parents' home. In full transparency, I will tell you that those are not the families who I tended to be the most successful with, because what I often found is that there is a highly codependent relationship between one of the parents, sometimes both, but typically one of the parents and the young adult. And often the parent, because of their empathy dysregulation, has difficulty at this point of learning how to set limits or boundaries. Even though they are very despondent about the state that their child is in, they really have difficulty being able to make changes at this point in their young adult's life. The other thing I want you to understand about empathy dysregulation is this. Over the past few years, one of the things I've seen directly a result of social media is that empathy dysregulation has not only been normalized, but it's been valorized by many social media influencers and actually some professionals as well who do not understand how this can be harmful to a child or to a young adult. If you believe that you've had empathy dysregulation towards your child and it has made their behaviors worse, no judgment at all, and you can absolutely turn this around and change this. The way you can change this is by following the evidence-based recommended treatment for children with ADHD, which is parent training, which I provide through the ADHD Dude membership site, as well as medication management. If you would like to see the evidence as to why parent training is the recommended treatment for children with ADHD, please go to the website effectivechildtherapy.org and type ADHD in the search bar. What you will see there is medication management as well as parent training are the highest form of evidence-based interventions for children with ADHD. It is not healthy for any parent to be in a relationship dynamic as a result of their empathy dysregulation where they have to parent an adult as if they were a child. That doesn't feel good to parents, and it certainly doesn't feel good to the young adult who tends to develop a great deal of shame around the fact that they have not achieved these same developmental milestones as their similar age peers. If you take anything from this video, please keep in mind if you have fallen into empathy dysregulation with your child and that has exacerbated their behaviors, or you can see how it has not been serving them well, or if you have fallen into low demand parenting or other types of social media based pseudoscience, please know you're not doing anything wrong. You can turn this around and there is support to help you. Please feel free to check out the ADHD Dude membership site where I provide parent training as well as other courses to help you help your child reach their full potential. I'll speak to you soon. Take care.